We had a great conversation last week about lighting and gels. And I know there were a lot of unanswered questions. So let's dig in again tonight and solve some more lighting problems, shall we? Now, before we do, I'm proud to say that this episode of The Last Frame is sponsored by Imaging USA 2022, which is hosted by Professional Photographers of America. Imaging USA 2022 is going to be live and in person this year at the Gaylord Resort in National Harbor, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. It runs from January 16th to the 18th, which is 3 weeks from now. And believe me, you don't want to miss it. I have a registration link below the video, and I'll tell you more about it in just a few minutes. Stay tuned. Hey gang, I am Joe Edelman, and this is The Last Frame, the only live show on YouTube with a focus on the hows and whys behind making consistently great photographs. And for the next 30 minutes, I'm here to help you improve your photography skills. And if you're watching me live, please leave me a little note in the chat, in the chat. Let me know you're here and where you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay, no sweat. Please leave a comment below the video. It's always cool to see where photographers are tuning in from. Already, we got David here in San Diego. I got Dylan in Canada. Nicola in Italy. Let's see, Charles. Charles is from out on the West Coast. Lynn in New York. Mateo in Switzerland. We got people all over the place. Marquis, you're in California, man? Wow, good for you. Or is that Charlotte? Whichever. Thank you all so much for being here. All of you are part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries who tune in to watch The Last Frame. Now, you know, it would help a lot more people find out about The Last Frame if you could do me a solid and hit that thumbs up, below the video, okay? Right down there, okay? That way, YouTube will recommend the show to other photographers. And of course, while you're there, feel free to hit that share button. Let your photography friends know that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Twitter, Facebook, fastest way to get the word out. And hey, listen, if you're a member of any photography clubs or groups or meetups, please let your fellow members know about The Last Frame. Don't keep it all to yourself. Remember, photography, it's not a competition. It is a passion to be shared. So our topic for this episode, lighting, part 2. What are your struggles and how can I help you? We had a really great discussion last week that really focused primarily on gels and a lot of stuff to do with gels. Already we've got some good questions in here this week, but give me more. Come on, if you're here, don't just watch and listen. There's got to be something that is on your priority list of things that you want to get better at, things that you struggle with. Let me help you out. So I see one here from Canadian Saurus Rex. Hey, Joe, I did a family Christmas shoot last weekend, and I couldn't really balance the Christmas lights with my off-camera flash. So my question is, how to expose for the background lights and the people? Ha-ha! Well, it's interesting that you bring up that question. And no, I did not ask him to ask this question. So the bad words, there are 3 bad words in that question that you asked. And they didn't used to be bad words, but they're bad words. Those 3 bad words, off-camera flash. Just is. The solution, LEDs. Doesn't have to be this one, but this is my choice. LED is the answer. It's so much easier and it makes so much more sense. So Canadian Source Rex, let's answer it based on flash first, but then I'll get into this really quick. And I keep forgetting Canadian Source Rex, it's Mike, right? Okay, so look, here's the thing. The thing that you need to do anytime, so this is probably really gonna be a gut punch when I tell you that the way you get your exposure to work in that situation where you've got Christmas lights in the background and you're using off-camera flash, the way you get your exposure to work is the exact same way you get your exposure to work if you're using fill flash outdoors in bright sunlight, or even trying to overpower the sun outdoors in bright sunlight. You do it the same way. You set your exposure for the ambient light first, right? That's the way you're going to do it. Even though flash is essentially your key light in your shot or your main light, whichever you prefer, those two terms are interchangeable. It's secondary in this kind of a situation, especially since in this case, you know that the flash is so much more brighter than those Christmas tree lights that you've got in the background and the other ambient light in the room. Do your test shots and get your exposure set for the ambient light. Then turn your flash on, and inevitably you're going to be dialing that flash way down. You may even have to put, a CTO, a neutral density CTO on your flash to knock some of the power down, depending on the situation. But here's the downside that you run into. And this is why, I made the comment about LEDs. And honestly, Mike, it's that simple. That's all it is. Ambient light exposure first, add in the flash to the appropriate power, boom, done. That's it. Now, obviously, what I just described to you is also a lot of manipulating to do kind of on the fly if you're trying to be spontaneous and you've got people standing in front of you that you want to photograph and you're moving around. It's a little bit overwhelming, right? But that's how you're going to do it. The beauty of working with LEDs. In fact, Mike, I'm curious, and then I see it as Mike. Thank you. So, Mike, do me a favor, really quick. Are you using a mirrorless camera? Yes or no? Here's something, and I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't want to sound too brilliant here because it's not that I'm brilliant. I feel stupid. It's really only been a couple of months ago that this message and this concept started to sink in to me. And I will be completely honest. You guys know that I am sponsored by Stellapro. So this is not an ad pitch, but it was when, okay, so Mike's still on DSLRs. All right, cool. So it was when I started working with Stellapro as an ambassador, and that was with the CLX10 lights, which are awesome, crazy powerful, all that stuff. I started using LEDs more because I had wanted to use LEDs because I just honestly thought it was easier. And then the more I used them, and then when I got involved with the reflex, it really kind of clicked in. I had that light bulb moment where it's like, my God, photographers as a whole, all of us, myself included, we haven't been using our cameras the right way. We simply haven't. We're not approaching lighting the right way. Now, who am I to say what the right way is, right? You guys always hear me say there's no rules, all that kind of stuff. Here's what I mean. Mirrorless cameras. So, Mike, you get a little bit of slack here, but believe me, the LED is still going to be easier for you, right? Mirrorless cameras are WYSIWYG. For those of you who don't know what WYSIWYG is, it's actually a HTML/internet/computer terminology. What you see is what you get, okay? WYSIWYG meaning when you look through the viewfinder of a mirrorless camera, you're seeing the finished image. You're seeing the exposure. You're seeing the depth of field. You're seeing everything right there. So mirrorless cameras come along. Everybody starts rushing out to buy their Sonys and their Olympuses and their Canons finally and the Nikons finally. And yet they still use flash. With flash, you can't see the finished exposure until after you take the picture. Doesn't matter if you're shooting on a mirrorless camera or if you're shooting with a DSLR, you can't see the finished exposure. Why? Why take this new camera with this game-changing technology of an EVF, electronic viewfinder, and still light the old way? That's where LEDs come in, and that's where LEDs make so much more sense. Because with an LED, you're going to turn that LED on. And, a light like this, there's one knob on the back. One knob. Like, that's it, right? So you're going to turn the LED on, and even if you're hand-holding, I don't have the battery pack on this right now, right? But you guys have seen the pictures of it with the battery pack, and you've seen me with it with the battery pack. So if I'm hand-holding this thing, I can turn the dial with my thumb on the back. So, if I've got my exposure set for my ambient light, I can dial that light just to where I want it. Boom. And the exposure's set. It's there. I'm good to go. Right? There's no guesswork. There's absolutely there's no test shots. It's right there. I can see it. And keep in mind, right now, I don't have a modifier in this. So I could be using one of the optics that's going to either narrow the beam of light or spread the beam of light. I could put it in a Shimura softbox. I could use any kind of modifier on it, but I could hand hold this thing and walk around, and there's my off-camera flash. And if I need to power it up or power it down a little bit, I don't have to change the exposure on my camera. If my camera's set up for the ambient light, I'm just going to adjust the brightness of the LED on the fly while I'm looking through the camera, right? So let's put a pause there real quick because I got to take care of a real quick piece of business, and I will come back to that and I'll fill in the rest of that and kind of how that differs for DSLRs, Mike. Okay. So I mentioned at the top of the show, gang, that this episode is sponsored by Imaging USA 2022. So look, if you haven't registered to attend, you're running out of time because this thing is only 3 weeks away, right? End of the year, plus that, holidays, all that stuff, it's here. I get it that you're busy, but don't miss out on this opportunity. If you have the ability to go, I swear to you, you should go. It's going to take place January 16th through the 18th. That's the main conference. The pre-con classes run January 13th, 14th, and 15th. In fact, I'll be teaching one on January 13th. It is going to be live and in person this year. It's at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center in National Harbor, Maryland, which is right outside of National DC. And if you've never been to a Gaylord resort, they're literally like an entire city under one roof. They're incredible. Imaging USA is the world's largest and oldest photography conference and expo. So from start to finish at a conference like this, you get everything photography. Opening and closing keynote speakers, more than 80 speakers from across the photographic community, teaching over 100 educational sessions, including pre-conference classes that are going to help you improve your photography, your business, your technical skills, all of it. And one of the fun parts, there's the Imaging USA Expo with all the new and best loved photography products. So you can attend all 3 days of the trade show and attend the talks and the presentations for just $99. And if you're a new member of PPA, or if you join now, which you should, sincerely, gang, PPA has so much to offer. It's not just about making money. It's about learning photography. But if you're a new member or you join now, you can attend Imaging USA 2022 for free. It's one of the member benefits. You get to attend your first imaging for free. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be teaching a full day pre-con class on Thursday, the 13th, January 13th. So it's 3 weeks from yesterday. It's going to run 9 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. in the afternoon. I'll be presenting a talk called the Portrait Photography, Create the Difference, Make It Fun, Market It, and Sell It. Long title, right? But literally, this is like a start to finish portrait class where we're going to cover everything. Planning, prep, lighting, posing, communicating with subjects, even a little bit of post-production. And yes, we're going to have some fun because we're going to do some crazy fashion portraits, and I'll share a whole bunch of the techniques that I get to do, that I do when I'm shooting those shots. Also, during the expo, so that's Sunday through Tuesday, from 11:30 every morning until 5 p.m., I believe it is, every afternoon, I'll be doing demonstrations at the Stellapro booth. So I'll be there all 3 days at the Stellapro booth. That's going to be Sunday through Tuesday. So if you do make it, make sure you stop by and say hi. So the link, it's in the show notes below the video. I am going to share it once again. I already put it in the chat for you once, but I'm going to share it with you one more time here so that you have it. And that will allow you to sign up. And whoops, it would help if I could actually copy things properly. There we go. Okay, I'll put that in there. All right, there you go. So I hope I see you guys there. All right. Now, back to Mike's question. One more follow-up piece on that, Mike. Okay. So I see your follow-up note that you did 2 shots and edited in Photoshop. I mean, yeah, you could do that, man, but obviously that's a ton of work. So I will actually give you credit, Mike, since you were kind of stumped in the moment, right? In the moment, since you were kind of stumped on how to make it work, the fact that you thought, okay, let me do 2 shots. I'll work them out later. That's actually really great problem solving. I mean, it is. Obviously, it's not the optimal way to do it. It's not the best way to do it. And certainly if from a business perspective, if you're trying to make money, that is like so far outside the box, right? And that's not always going to work. You're sometimes going to get burned that way, right? So here's the thing with DSLRs, Mike, and this is why this is even more beneficial to you, right, than doing the flash version. With the DSLR, you're going to set your exposure for the ambient light first. You could easily be looking at a situation where you're shooting at ridiculously low shutter speeds. I'm talking 30th, 15th of a second to be able to get enough going on with that ambient light. So the problem of it is when you add the flash in, the flash is really fast. So whatever your foreground subject is, the people that you're photographing, they'll be sharp. But if you have any camera motion, you're going to blur the background behind them and you'll get ghosting around the subject. That's actually, you can use that creatively. It's what they call shutter drag, right? So That's why, and you can't really raise your ISO in that situation. You guys have heard me talk a lot lately about don't be afraid to raise your ISOs. I mean that. You shouldn't be afraid to raise your ISOs. But here's the challenge. When you raise the ISO and you're using the flash, you still have the problem with the flash being so bright. So it actually makes it even harder to balance things with the flash. So you work with LEDs, yeah, you're going to raise your ISO a stop or two. Probably, in all honesty, like for event type work, you're not going to have to raise your ISO more than about a stop, literally, over what you would shoot at if you were shooting flash. And then set your exposure for the ambient light and literally just, what I would use is the dome. In fact, here, I think I have their website up here. I do. So let me switch you guys over. So one of the modifiers, and again, there's a lot of different ways that you can approach this. Let me scroll down. So this optic, this is called an optic that you're seeing here. It comes with the medium optic, right? Which gives you, a fairly decent spread. My favorite, honestly, my favorite accessory is, and now, of course, am I going to be able to find a picture of one easily? Let's see. Let's click on one of these product pages and see if I can find a picture. Oh, gosh, really? All right, let's hit accessories and see if I can find it there. There it is, the dome diffuser. Super simple, right? It's basically just a diffused dome. Plus, and to switch these modifiers out, by the way, whether it's the optics or any of those, it's just give it a twist that like locks in, okay? And then, just pop it out and there you go. And obviously it's easier with the bigger things like the dome or the optics, so you have more to grab, right? This is just basically a clear cover so that you don't make the mistake of touching the LED chip, right? Because you don't want to be touching the LED chip. So the best answer is, Mike, honestly, LED all the way, right? LED is going to make it so much simpler. And even with DSLR, it's going to be a ton simpler, right? You're still, you're going to be chimping a little bit more with a DSLR than a mirrorless, but it's just a whole lot easier, okay? All right, so let me go back up here. Charles had a question. So, Charles, I love you, man, but I gotta give you a little bit of grief here, okay? Not bad. I'm not going to embarrass you, but this applies to all of you because a lot of you that are here are guilty of this, okay? Charles' question was this. In fact, here, let me put it on the screen. That way I can read it. And okay, so here was his question. I'm curious about tips to get flattering fall off on the face when the subject is at varying angles from the camera. For example, most YouTubers showcase 45 degrees left or right from the camera. Okay? So, and then he does go on to say far fewer people discuss other ways to get flattering fall off. So, Charles, here's the problem with that question. It's the statement about most YouTubers, right? Here's what that tells me. That tells me that you're spending way too much time watching YouTube videos. And the worst part of it is what have you actually learned? Nothing. Because you don't know how to do it. Now, what would be the better way to learn? To actually pick up a camera, maybe invest in a mannequin, or get a human being in front of your camera and actually go try it for yourself. Just saying, because, then you've got actual experience. And look, guys, I'm not trying to embarrass Charles here. There's a lot of you that make this mistake. Stop with the damn YouTube videos, right? What are you getting from them? You're watching people look cool in gimbal shots with background music. How much do they share with you about why? Tell me that. They don't. Okay, and look, I'm not trying to trash talk anybody. Any of these YouTubers, I give them tons of credit. I know how hard they work to put those videos out week after week after week. Remember, I did it. And the problem of it is all of you treated it like a freaking television show. It's like, oh, what's it going to do next? And then ask me the same questions that were just in the video. because you watch the videos, but you don't pick up the camera and go, try it. So I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but that's not why I did those videos. I did my videos to educate. So I'd rather be here and let you guys come and let me help you solve problems. I'm not going to waste my time making those videos because people don't put in the effort. They just don't, right? So the problem with the answer that you're getting from all these YouTubers, they don't have a lot of experience, Charles. Most of them are really young and have only been shooting for like 5 to 10 years, if that. And don't get me wrong, they're wicked talented. A lot of them, 1,000 times more talented than me. But that doesn't mean they understand everything they are doing. I didn't for a lot of years. Literally. I could do things visually and make it look good, but I didn't necessarily understand it. So, the 45-degree thing, the minute I hear 45 degrees, my gut response is like, gag me. Boring. The 45 degrees, Charles, it runs its history all the way back, which most of these YouTubers don't tell you because they don't know. All right? If they've taken art classes in school, which I never did, but I've done my research, it comes from Rembrandt lighting, the 45 degrees. And here's the irony of it. Rembrandt, even though everybody always talks about how Rembrandt had his models at 45, or subject, 45 degrees to the window, we have plenty of information and proof that he didn't. He actually had the window at almost 90 degrees to his subject. So forget that you ever heard the damn 45-degree thing, right? Literally, because here's why. If you've got it in your head that, okay, the best light's at 45 degrees, that means you're always going to be reluctant to do something different for fear of it not looking good. And as a byproduct of that, what happens is you are not teaching yourself to see the light. And in addition, you're not being creative. You're not looking for opportunities. So, Robert, please, 49 degrees. Cut me a break, man. Can we, stop with the degrees. Look, any of you, okay, I'm going to upset somebody here, but I'm going to be real. Any of you that think of your lighting your lighting placement in terms of degrees, your lighting sucks. It sucks. Please prove me wrong. Show me your work and tell me, oh my God, it's amazing. Let me see it, because it's not. It's boring. Stop thinking in degrees. Lighting for photography is not mathematical unless you're doing high-end technical work. That is not photographing people. Okay? Because in part, every human being is different. Every single human being is different. Different features, different physical habits, different physical traits. So you can't work in degrees if you want to do good, flattering work. You just can't, gang. Right? So look, this is not rocket science. I'm not kidding. It is not rocket science. So I'm going to give you guys an example here. And Charles, here's the task that you need to go and you need to replicate. Not on a piece of software, not with a protractor, but you have to do it with your eyes. John, and they move. You're right. And gang, hey, listen, John Cornicello, who's in the chat, if you don't know him, Google him, look him up. Another lighting master. Okay? So look, let me show you this example. And this is something, and again, I'm going to give you a quick tip here that can save you a ton of time and also help you get to better lighting faster. But it's not a rule, and it's not the only thing that's going to get you to good lighting. So I want you to notice in this studio that I've recreated here, I made, and some of you have seen me talk about this before, but maybe Charles hasn't, so we're going to go through it. And that's cool because I think it's very, very useful for people to see. So for right now, just pay attention to the middle section over here to the left of my picture, right? Notice I created this circle. So every square on the floor is 1 foot square. So this is a 10-foot diameter circle that you're looking at, right? Subject is in the middle. So that means it's 5 feet to the edge all the way back. So she's 5 feet in front of the background. And the stand, not the modifier, but the stand is 5 feet. So basically the front of the light is just about 5 feet from the subject. It could be 4, and then it would be an 8-foot diameter circle. It could be 6, and then it would be 12-foot diameter circle. I suck at math. 5 is an easy number, multiplies to 10, so we're working with 10. And honestly, in my studio, my work, I probably would normally be working with about a 7-foot diameter circle. Okay, if it really came down to it. But this is just an easy way. And I don't have a circle on my floor, but this is just an easy way to think about it. So now, that's the basic setup. I always talk about this again because it's important. For simple portraiture, we're not talking about creative, out-of-the-box stuff, none of that. Just talking basic stuff. You'll notice more than 2/3 of my modifier is above the subject's head, right? Our brains, human beings, our brains expect light to come from above. Period. That's why in Hollywood, in the movies, when they're making zombie films, the light's down here. The shadows on the top are startling, right? So you see so many YouTubers taking their lights and basically like hanging it over top of the subject. Why? I mean, look, it works, but they've got to add in all kind of other light to do it, or they've got the eyes like really sunken and you can't see the eyes. Why do that, right? So, but here's the thing. For me, Charles, my starting point is always going to be just to the left or just to the right of the camera. Starting point. Now, how do I pick which side? It depends on which side is the subject's best side, or it depends on how is the image being used. Meaning, if it's going to be a social media picture, almost always, like a profile picture for LinkedIn, or for Facebook, almost always my light's going to be on camera right. Let's see if you can figure out why, okay? So that being said, here's where the circle comes in handy. Let me back up. So you can see I'm working with a 200 watt second flash in this box. I have it, this is an old file. I have it set up for flash, but you can see it's set up at a 200 watt second flash, right? So I'm shooting with micro 4/3. That's the crop 2. My lens is a 45 millimeter, so that's a 90 millimeter equivalent for you full frame people. 250th a second because it's flash, f6.3. So that was what I was trying to get to, the 6.3, right? So watch the image above me. As long as I keep my light stand on the edge of the circle, no matter where I go, the exposure at 6.3 is correct. I can come back around the other side. No matter where I go, the exposure is correct. So if you're a beginner photographer and beginning with lighting, okay? Now actually it's a 45 1.2, Robert, is the one I have, but they do make a 1.8, which is an awesome lens. I had the 45 1.2 Pro from Olympus, okay? The trick here with this little circle, take a piece of string, like literally take a piece of string. And if you want to work on the 10-foot diameter, like I'm doing here, okay? Cut the string a little over 5 feet, tie it to the light stand. And every time you move the light, just hand the string to your subject and have them hold it to their chest and make sure the string is just taut, okay? And move the light around, and you never have to change your exposure the entire shoot. Many of you have had the experience where you've been burned. You did your test shots, you got everything dialed in, you do your first couple shots and you're like, well, I want to move the light over. And then maybe you move the light again, and then maybe you move the light again, and then your subject leaves, and then you download the files to your computer, and your exposures are all over the place. They keep changing throughout the entire shoot because once you started moving the light around, you forgot to check your exposure again. This way, your exposure's always going to be consistent. Hector got the right answer about the social media, right? Because the images are usually placed on the left side of the social media profile, and you want the subject looking into the frame. Really good, Hector. That's why when somebody says to you, hey, can you take a picture for me? A portrait? Your first response should not be, yeah, I'd love to. Your first response should be, why? What do you need it for? Questions like that allow you to make sure that you're providing an image that is actually going to be useful to the subject. Don't expect that the subject's going to tell you everything you need to know. You need to ask them everything they need to know, because they may not have thought about all that stuff, right? So Charles, now that we got that part down, right? Since I have her facing a little bit to camera right, this would indeed be my starting lighting. My starting lighting for most of what I ever shoot, where the nose goes, that's where the light goes. So just like right now, you can see my light's over there, but my nose is here. That's not how I would light it. I would start here. So the face is towards the key light. I'm not saying that's a rule. I said that's my starting point. Whoops, that's my starting point, right? So, but I want you to watch now above me, okay? You talk about light fall off. This is a 32-inch octabox that is on this light. As I move the light, we get varying degrees of fall off. The further I move the light off axis, in other words, from the axis of the lens to the subject, the more dramatic the fall off becomes. The closer I am to the camera, the less dramatic. But I want you to notice something. I told you my starting point is usually like around here, literally. And by the way, you can watch any of my videos and see that when I was doing the videos, okay? Or you can look at my Instagram profile. Look at my Instagram profile and swipe on all of my Instagram posts, show the lighting diagrams, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can see where I place my light. You'll notice I don't go anywhere close to 45 degrees, right? 45 degrees is, honestly, it's boring to me, right? Now, if you're going to do some other stuff with it, okay, cool, right? But my style, my taste, not my thing, right? I'm not a traditionalist in that sense. And then, of course, keep in mind, though, there's a lot of different ways to manipulate this. We can come over to, closer to 45 degrees, like into there, which to me, that's really, really harsh light fall off on camera left. But then I could go ahead and I could put in, a white foam board reflector and, whoops, let me unlock that. And, there's a lot that I can do based on the placement of that reflector in terms of, how much am I going to soften or fill in that spot. So the thing of it is the reason why, to back up, the reason why I get my back up against the wall when people start talking about how many degrees is this and that, it's too analytical. It locks you in to a set of numbers, and it's taking your brain away from the most important thing. The most important thing is that subject, right? Because one subject is not the same as another subject, is not the same as the next, or the next, or the next, or the next. And that's the important piece, okay? So, gosh, I'm going to run over tonight, but what the heck? We'll do this. It's Christmas, okay? Question so Charles, seriously, I hope that helps, but Charles, I'm curious, like your day job, are you like an engineer or an architect or something like that? Because you ask questions like an engineer. And I don't mean any disrespect to engineers. Like, look, to be good as an engineer, you got to be about numbers and, and that kind of stuff, okay? But if you want to take really unique and creative, images, you got to let go of some of that kind of mindset, gang. You really do. And it takes practice. I hate to keep beating that word, but it takes practice, right? You got to actually practice. That's why the YouTube videos don't, Charles Turcott, IT, there you go. And seriously, like I'm not picking anybody, but that makes sense. In the IT world, heck, programming is ones and zeros, right? Everything in IT it really is like, it's a yes or a no, it's a right or a wrong. That's the challenge. You got to work to let go of some of that. Let yourself learn to really kind of just respond visually and see things and decide for yourself what you like. Okay. It doesn't need to be exact because that's not what we're doing here at all. But I promise you, Charles, watch think about it. Do me a favor. Here's what I want you to do, Charles, before you come back to another last frame, right? I want you to think about how many YouTube videos you've watched in the last month and approximately how long they were. And I can tell you right now, on average, they were at least 10 minutes apiece. At least, okay? Come up with that number, and before you come back to another episode of The Last Frame, I want you to promise me you're going to put in that much time with your camera and your lights. And no degrees, all right? Dylan, I've noticed that if I only use a single off-center light, my subject's eye color appears dull compared to when I have an additional light pointing in the direction the eyes are focused. Does that make sense? Dylan, that can depend on a couple of things. One, it can depend, honestly, on the race of your subject. It can depend on if you have the light too high. So my question there would also be, are you seeing a catch light in the eyes? If you're seeing a catch light in the eyes and your light's not too high in terms of making the eye look dull, certainly the further off axis you get your light, the less color that is going to reflect out of the eye. So yeah, there's a lot of things in there. You'll notice, Dylan, if again, go to my Instagram, look at my lighting diagrams. You'll notice frequently I use the white foam board right underneath my subject. And literally what that does is it kicks just enough fill up to give me some nice color in the eyes without being a really heavy hot light and or without creating a really bright catch light in the bottom of the eyes. Like you guys have all seen that thing, the eyeliner, that half circle thing. The irony of it is 99% of the pictures that you see taken with that, I'm not exaggerating, swear to God, 99% of the pictures you see taken that were lit improperly. Because the idea with that highlighter is you should not be able to tell the exact shape of it and tell exactly what it is. It's designed to be a really subtle catch light in the bottom that just lightens up the eyes. It's not, at least in my opinion, it is not a cool thing to see this hot white half circle in the bottom of the eyes. I find that distracting personally, right? So I saw another question here. Where did that go? Cass Woofy, constant light scares me, but of course it does because it's new and it's different and I have no idea where to start. Cass, it shouldn't scare you, and I'll tell you how to start because you already started. You literally did. You already started. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cass. I'm going to make a bet here. In fact, I should bet money. I'm willing to bet that when you first bought a camera, you were a natural light photographer because you probably didn't buy a flash with it. So that means you were a constant light photographer. Think of the way that I described to Mike, Canadian Source Rex, about how to do the lighting at the event where you're balancing the Christmas tree lights to the flash. All you're doing when you're working with constant light is, if you're working in a setting where there's already light and you want that scene, you're exposing for that scene, and then you're going to dial in just enough light to make your subjects look good. That's it. If you're in a studio and you're working in a studio setting, well, then constant light is no different than flash, except for the fact you don't have to shoot and then look. You can see it while you're doing it. You can see it with your own eyes. You can see it with your camera. So the point is, constant light is actually 10 times easier than flash. Not exaggerating, gang. I'm not exaggerating at all. The only people that are not going to be able to use LEDs, the only people, are the people that are still stuck in the trend from 5 years ago where they need to be able to walk outside at high noon, pick the ugliest possible background, and overpower the sun so that they can make that background dark and make it disappear. Those people still need strobes. They just do. But anybody that wants to really be creative and really just do photography and who's more interested in their subjects than making sure that every single picture looks the same, well, then constant lighting is 10 times easier. Because everything you do, even when you're experimenting, think about it. Even, guys, when you're shooting your strobes, right? And you move a light around and you're like, I wonder what'll happen here. I wonder what'll happen there. Think about what your subject experience is. You're going to move the light. You're going to set it up. You're going to say, okay, let's take a test shot. Oh, no, crap. That's not good. No, that's not good. Oh, my God. No, it's not working. Let me try another one. That's better. Okay. If you're working with a constant light, you're going to say, hey, let me make an adjustment because I want to try something. You move the light over. You could see, it's not working. You don't have to be standing like, that's going to suck. You adjust it. Till it's right. Oh, yeah, that's good. A little brighter. Boom. And then you go back and shoot. Done. Game over. Like, that's it. It's so much more efficient. It's so much faster. And your subjects aren't sitting there watching you fumble around while you do test shots to see how it looks. Like, seriously, gang. Again, I gave you full disclosure, right? I am sponsored by Stellapro. I'm not saying you got to go out and buy a Stellapro. Just like any other light. It's not for everybody. But the point is this. LED is for everybody. LED is the way your mirrorless cameras were designed to work. And even for DSLR shooters, LED is simply more efficient. And since you guys are following me, I'm going to assume that you do portrait work or people work. When you're dealing with people, not having to like go back and forth, and look, I'm exaggerating with the walk over the light thing, but hey, even if you're just sitting there dialing in on a transmitter, right? You're still guessing, testing, guessing, testing, guessing, testing. And your subject's sitting the whole time like, do they really know what the heck they're doing? Right? With the LED lights, you move that light, you adjust it, boom, there, you're seeing it. You're seeing it even before you get back to pick up the camera. You're able to see what you've just done. That's the beauty of it. And look, I'm surprised nobody said it. I'll do both sides of the argument for you. I've been waiting for somebody to say, well, what about if you have modeling lights? Modeling lights do that for you too. Well, number one, not everybody has the money to go out and buy high-end strobes with good modeling lights. And number two, if you've ever worked with modeling lights, you know that they're helpful. They're very helpful. But it's not the same. It's not the same as what you're going to see when you fire that flash. Never is. So that's the whole thing about LEDs, right? And again, gang, look, everybody take a breath, because I know you just spent a lot of money for the Christmas holidays, right? I'm not pushing any of you to go out and buy LED lights tomorrow. No, right? You know I don't do that. But I am telling you, you need to start paying attention. You need to start paying attention, get your head wrapped around the fact that indeed there's a big evolution happening. Because we're a year or two away from big evolution happening with cameras. I'm warning you, I've warned you before, right? So, Robert, these do not get very hot at all. In fact, if you can see, and I apologize here, I don't have the other camera turned on. Let me turn this on. I wasn't prepared because I didn't think I was going to show gear. That's my bad. Give me just a second. Let's see if I got this. Whoops, if this camera's okay. So good. If you look close at this thing, Robert, it is like mostly all heat sink on the side. And there is a fan. The cool part of it is the fan doesn't kick in until you get to 4,000 lumens. So I can't do it right now because I don't have the battery pack, but I will tell you guys this, right? For those of you that might shoot video, if you're a hybrid shooter, a light like this is amazing because you get the flash, plus you get the LED. But my microphone is literally right at the edge of the frame, like, right? So you can hear me, picking on it. I will tell you this, I can hold this light right here when it's powered on with the fan going. You will not hear, you'll hear it with your ears. The frequency of it, you're going to hear it with your ears. The mic will not pick it up. It literally does not pick it up. So you can use them for video. But you asked about hot and model uncomfortable. Does the light get warm? Yes. Does it make the model uncomfortable? No, because part of the making the model uncomfortable thing is number one, unless you're going to shine the light right in their eyes, okay? And then number two, you're generally going to have the lights up above your subject slightly, right? You also don't need the light to be, like this light goes up to, 9,000 lumens at full power on continuous lighting. It'll go up to 18,000 lumens on digital burst, but 9,000 lumens on full power, continuous light, okay? I don't need 9,000 lumens to photograph a portrait. I just don't. I can do it at about 4,000 lumens, which is much, much more manageable. Plus, with a light like this, I can use the light as not a modeling light, but an actual light where, let's say I need 8,000 lumens. So follow along, because this is a freaking cool feature about this light, right? Remember, this is the light that has that digital burst. It's got the flash in it. So I could set this, say, at 4,000 lumens, which is less than half power. And I can make sure that I've got my exposure dialed in. I work my exposure. I was like, oh, I like the light placement there. I dial it in, and let's say I come up with an f4 for 4,000 lumens at the distance I'm working. Boom. All I have to do is one button, not even turn it, push it. Just push the button on the back so that it switches to digital burst. And remember, I told you I figured out it was f4. Now I can go ahead and set my aperture to f5.6. One stop difference. So I'm going to close it down one stop, and I'll have the perfect exposure with flash. Brighter, right? So you have the ability with this, if you want to use a digital burst, you can actually turn your LED down, Robert, and still get another full stop by using the burst. And the only time you really need to do that, and that was a lot of explaining, so I hope I didn't confuse you. The only time that's of benefit really to anybody, since Robert asked about making a model uncomfortable, if you get a subject with really sensitive eyes, Sure, that kind of stuff's always a possibility. But here's the thing, guys. If you've been shooting for any period of time, if you've run into anybody with really sensitive eyes, you also learned that even the flash irritates their eyes, right? So we're always going to be, working around that, okay? One guy said, what do you think about rotolights? Something like the Neo 2. I hate them with a passion. Now, so let's back up a second because I'm an ambassador. I'm not supposed to say those kind of things. But look, you guys know I'm going to give it to you straight. Here's the thing with rotolights. Number one, they're made out of plastic. This thing's metal. These are drop tested to 1 meter, and I have dropped them. I'm not proud of that. I swear to God, the day that I got my first one, I dropped it twice. All right, I'll tell you honestly why. Because I didn't read the instructions. That's why you read the instructions. I wasn't mounting it properly, and so twice it fell right off, and it was totally bonehead thing that I was not doing because I hadn't read the instructions. So I dropped it twice. So I can attest. Drop test to 1 meter, no sweat, no dents, no dings, no scratches. So these are metal, right? These are manufactured, made in the USA, right? They're solid. So the rotolight made out of plastic. Number one, rotolights work on weird AA's, and I think you can use the Sony batteries on some of them, that kind of stuff. Plus, all right, notice this is a single chip. With this little grip, I can put it in a Pro Photo mount. I can put it in a Bowens mount. I can put it in a Shimura mount. The rotolight, they make modifiers for it, but it's got to be a rotolight modifier. And the problem with the rotolight is it's about this big around. It's a weird size, and it's multiple little LEDs, right? Multiple LEDs. So you're getting multiple points of light, which means your lighting is not even that comes out of that. Also, from a power standpoint, it doesn't even register on the same scale, not even close. So, yeah, rotolights, and even the new one's no better. The one they're advertising, it's going to have bicolor in it, all that kind of stuff. First of all, you don't need bicolor in your LED lights because you got to be honest, how often are you really going to use that bicolor? And the fact of the matter is nobody's making bicolor lights that are super, super powerful. Nobody is, right? They're just not. So, Charles, I dropped my Neo 2 and the plastic pieces and AA batteries flew everywhere, right? So, yeah, I mean, that's not the way to go. These puppies are solid. But again, for me, here's the simple selling point. Forget all those things I told you about the rotolight. Here's the simple selling point. If you're already using flash, you already have modifiers. You're already using Bowens mount or Pro Photo or whatever. You've got your mounts. If you go with something like a rotolight, you've got to go buy all new modifiers. And you've got to change the way you think about your light placement because the modifiers are different. With a light like this, I use the exact same modifiers that I used to use with strobes, and I use the exact same placement for where I place my light. So my lighting methodology in the studio, the way that I work, my workflow, it did not have to change. For me, if people are going to get me, if a company is going to get me to change my workflow, then here, Robert, I will show you the website. Really, it's not on my website. Hold on. You want to go to lightinmotion.com/reflex. I'm going to give it to you right here. There's two of them. There's the Reflex and the Reflex S. This happens to be the link for the Reflex S. Honestly, 99% of you that are here, you do not need the Reflex S, and I'll tell you why. Here's the trick, right? So there are two of them, gang. Let me find the page where they're side by side. Sorry. I should know exactly where it is, and I don't. Bear with me once. Oh, wait, if I got to the home page, I can get the page of them side by side. This is what I want. Okay, so there's two models. There is the Reflex and the Reflex S, okay? The big difference, and most of you don't need it, the Reflex will shoot up to 10 frames a second at full power, 18,000 lumens, right? The Reflex S will shoot up to 20 frames a second. Now, don't be the gearhead that doesn't think it through. Most of you don't have cameras that will shoot 20 frames a second. So the Reflex S does you no good, right? And then you have to ask the question, how often do you shoot 10 frames a second, right? So, Robert, if you are seriously interested, make sure you message me like on Facebook if you're in my group, or message me regularly on Facebook. I can share with you a discount code. Okay. And that applies to any of you, but since Robert's talking about it, if you're interested in the lights, let me know. I'll share a discount code with you. Okay. I can't post it online, but if you reach out to me, I can share the code. So I'm not going to post it in the chat. Message me. You can find me on Facebook, right? Or Instagram, either one. So yeah, again, most of you only need the reflex, which, the reflex you're looking at $849, and then I can give you a discount code to get you 20% off. Okay. But again, do your research. Look, this is not the kind of thing that you rush out and buy, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But this is the kind of thing you better pay attention to. And when you are ready to start using your cameras to their maximum capability, you're going to realize this is the kind of light that you need to work with, right? Charles, I gave up on modifying rotolights. I had the EOS and the Neo. The strobe features are a joke. Yeah, I mean, it just, there's not enough. So one good eye, is there a good battery powered LED that I could use for weddings and portraits? Yeah, honestly, I would say the reflex. Because think about it. One good eye, if you're doing weddings especially, right? You've got moments in the wedding, even at the reception, where you want to be able to fire quick bursts of shots, right? You're going to have like the bride tossing the garter, okay? You want to be able to shoot a sequence, right? The bride and groom doing the cake cutting and they shove the cake into people's faces and everything's flying around. You want to do that, right? Coming out of the church, you have the wedding party lined up and they're throwing flower petals or confetti or rice, and you want to be able to use fill flash in that. You want to be able to fire off a burst, and you want to be able to get it every time. You do that with a strobe. If the strobe doesn't overheat, it's going to misfire because you're not going to get it to recycle fast enough. You're going to be waiting for the flash to recycle. With this, 0 recycle time, 0 reheating, like ever. So that's why you want to, here, I'm sorry. I'm telling you guys I'm looking at this. So that's the one I was talking about. My apologies. I forgot to switch the screen. Did I put the link in there for you guys or not? I did. Okay, so you guys have the link. So yeah, guys, I mean, check it out. In fact, here's the one thing I can do. Let me go back to the S. A lot of you guys have seen the photo that I took. You've seen this photo, right? So here, if you haven't seen this, I'll play this video real quick. It's 30 seconds, but I'll show you a little bit of behind the scenes of how this shot was made. Okay, so, gosh, all right, we're going a full hour tonight because I'm almost at the hour. Delta Dave, you purchased an S this morning. You're going to love it, man. Is there a way to power it via USB? Yes, several ways. So you can do USB-C cable to an AC power block, but that's still AC, right? Or here, let me go to Amazon. Let me see if I can find the unit that we need. There's a gadget called, here, bear with me 1 second, guys, because I want to find this for him. I just learned about this. 20C plus. There it is. Okay, cool. And I'll give you guys a link for this. So, let me switch my screen. Dave, if you want to charge via, and there may be some other options, right? But I'll tell you about this one. If you want to be able to use it on USB-C power, okay? This is what you want. It's a gadget called an Omni 20C Plus. And here, I'm going to give you a link. Yes, this is an affiliate link. So if you use this, I'll make a couple bucks, but don't worry, okay? So there's the link for it. So it's the Omni 20C Plus, okay? There is an Omni 20C, but that's like $250. And the only difference is that one has an AC plug in it too. But this gadget here will power twice as long as the battery handle does, Dave, okay? And it's even got the ability, like it'll it'll power your, you can recharge your phone. It's got USB C cables that you can charge darn near anything with. But I can tell you for a fact, in fact, I just ordered one, so I'm waiting for mine to get here. But I know that the folks at Light in Motion, the engineers that designed this is what they use in-house when they're testing and working with it. So yes, for sure that one works. But if you look for a USB-C battery, it's got to be a 100-watt battery if you want to be able to use the light at full power. You could work off like a 60-watt USB-C, but you're not going to be able to get it all the way up to 9,000 lumens, okay? Charles, can it accept DTAP? Yes. What you need to do, Charles, though, is you need an adapter that's going to take you from DTAP to USB-C. Tether Tools sells an adapter that will go from DTAP battery to USB-C. So you go to Tether Tools and you grab the adapter, and then yes, you totally can use it over DTAPs, because obviously DTAPs are awesome batteries. They're a bit big, they're a bit heavy, they're a bit clunky, which is why, for me at least, I would definitely go with something like the Omni 20C because it's smaller and lighter. But if you already have DTAPs, they will totally work. Okay. Delta Dave, you were going to get the spare handle, but they're out. Wow, if they're out, that's good. That means things are selling well. So yeah, I mean, having a spare handle is not a bad idea. If you've got and really what it's going to come down to, Delta Dave, is think about how you're going to use it, right? If you really want the handle so you can walk around and hold it, then yes, that's going to be very valuable to you. I mean, even for that matter, you could get like a stand mount, which is what I have on it. You could hold it this way, and then that Omni battery that I mentioned, you could like probably get like a little belt thing and just put that on your hip, just like we used to with the old, potato masher batteries, right? And then use a USB-C cord, okay, to power. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. That's kind of what I love about this, is between all the mods and the ability to use traditional modifiers and the option for a battery handle or a separate USB pack or a DTAP battery or AC power, all with USB-C cords. And think about the benefit of USB-C cords, gang. If you ever travel, you go to Europe, whatever, right? USB-C is an international standard. Just remember that, okay? Which is just awesome. So makes them, very, very universal. And, if you're ever out on the road, you need to get parts or pieces, so much easier. So, okay. Let's see here. Marcelino, any way we can get you to do a review comparison of the Reflex offerings, including the battery? It's coming. Yes, it is coming. It's going to be after the first of the year, but it is coming. I am actually working on that. There's a couple out there already, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, nobody's trashed it. There are a couple people that honestly made the mistake of comparing it, what I feel inappropriately, to like speed lights, and it's not a speed light, right? It does have flash, but it's not a speed light. It's a completely different piece of technology. So you really can't compare it to flashes, right? The whole idea is it is changing the way you think about lighting and exposure, but it's exactly the way your cameras are designed to work. That's the catch. I saw a question back here. Danny, how do you make it digital burst with a transmitter? Yes, you can use your Godox transmitters. They will fire it. If you go with an Edelman transmitter, the Edelman transmitter will allow you to control the power and everything remotely with the Edelman transmitter. Fingers crossed. I probably shouldn't say this, but fingers crossed. I know that they're working on trying to make it completely controllable through the Godox transmitters. In other words, power and everything, okay? It's not there yet. And by the way, that brings up a great point. There's an iPhone app. The Android app is about to be released right after the first of the year. But there's an iPhone app that you do firmware upgrades. So Stellapro, Light in Motion, the parent company, are very cognizant of the fact that this is revolutionary lighting. They are committed to the idea. They want to squeeze everything out of this light that they possibly can, because they've put about 3 years of research and development into this product. So it was really important for them to build it with the app so that the firmware can be upgraded, so that they can continue to, innovate with this thing and add new features up to the capabilities of this light before they come out with another one. So the cool part of it is, you know, you get one of these, you're going to be seeing firmware upgrades that are going to snap. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's going to be features that are going to make it a ton more powerful or something like that, but they are features that are going to give you more capabilities, allowing you to work with more transmitters, that kind of stuff. I know for sure on the modifiers, there's a couple new modifiers that are about to come out. So yeah, this is just the beginning. But this company, Stellapro, to their credit, they came at it not really from a consumer standpoint. You know, and look, I'm not trashing Rhodolite, but Rhodolite, in my opinion, came at it kind of more from a consumer end of like, okay, how can we get this going, et cetera. Stellapro came at it by consulting with and setting up focus groups of some really, really iconic, well-known photographers, not YouTuber stuff, not me, okay? Photographers, cinematographers, news photographers, people that like use their lights hardcore, heavy duty. Those were the people that were the focus groups for building this light out and this system out. So, you know, this was not just a consumer product that was thrown out there. This light was developed from the ground up, from scratch, to be a game changer. The idea of digital burst and everything, that's something that they own the patent on. It's theirs, right? So all of this is made from the ground up. It's pretty cool. Really pretty cool stuff. One good eye. Could you replicate the same shot with LED continuous versus flash and then both appear to be the same? Yeah, essentially you could. I mean, it depends, of course, on what you're photographing, one good eye, but yeah. At the end of the day, guys, light is light. What I also like about working with the LEDs, especially even with the flash, shutter speed comes back into the picture. So when I set my exposure, when I'm working with one of these, I'm setting exposure the same way I do when I'm shooting outside. I'm thinking about shutter speed and aperture and ISO. When I'm working with flash, I always know my shutter speed is going to be 1/250th of a second, right? That's the shutter speed that my camera syncs at. When I'm working with LED, I'm working with the same exposure settings that I would work with anywhere else because the shutter speed matters and I can change the shutter speed. There's no sync speed with this. If I want to shoot at a 500th of a second, I can shoot it at a 500th of a second. It's not, keep in mind with a flash, if you want to shoot at a 500th of a second, you got to go to high speed sync. And then the power of your flash, your big 600 watt second flash, the power drops way off. You don't have 600 watt seconds to work with at that point. I can still get 9,000 lumens or 18,000 lumens on digital burst out of this flash or out of this light with the digital burst. Okay. So, you know, again, yes, it's different. That's the hard part. But the difference is it's actually allowing you to think the same way, whether you're shooting natural light, whether you're shooting continuous light, whether you're shooting digital burst. You're still dealing with shutter speed, aperture, and ISO for every single setting, you know, setup that you do. That's the beauty of it. Okay. Charles, are the Stellars modifiable for more power? It would definitely void the warranty. Let's just say that. Okay. It would void the warranty. So, you know, to try and replace parts with higher output versions, the thing you have to understand is you'd be changing the chip. The problem with changing the chip, Charles, is color quality and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, I wouldn't recommend that, but I assure you, yeah, that would void the warranty. Okay. So anyway, I think I got all the questions. Okay. So clearly it sounds like, let's see, for a highlight like the Neo, Stella, they are plenty, wouldn't better modifier working well. Charles, I don't know what your statement was about modifiers not working well. I use modifiers on these all the time. I don't use bare light hardly ever. The modifiers work great. Okay. Definitely not on a Neo. Okay. So anyway, I'm way over time. Time to say goodbye. So look, here's what I promise you guys I will do. I'm sorry. I was not expecting this to become a big discussion about Stellapro at all. So, as I said, I am going to be doing a video about the Stellapros, also comparing the Stellapros to Rhodolites. I have a Rhodolite on the way so that I can, you know, make the comparison and show you guys. And I'm even going to add in a speed light to the mix. There's really not a comparison, but everybody wants to know, how does it compare to a speed light? So I'm going to do the comparison, and I'm going to show you guys, not only the feature pieces and the modifiers, but also the workflow. How does your workflow change? It's going to be after the first of the year, but count on it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I see the Merry Christmas wishes. Thank you very much, and a very Merry Christmas to all of you. I will be back next week. I know last week I said I wasn't going to be here. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I had my days all wrong for when Christmas hit. So I'm here, obviously. I will be here next week. And in the meantime, for those of you that celebrate Christmas, have a wonderful Christmas, a very safe Christmas, Kwanzaa, all of those, whatever it is. Even if you don't celebrate it, you're going to get a day off. So enjoy it, right? And especially if you don't celebrate it, then you damn well better pick the camera up and take some pictures. And if you do celebrate it, photograph your family, all that kind of stuff. Charles, look, I'm not going to do the Aperture 60D. Come on, man. I'm not a gearhead. That Aperture stuff, not even in the same realm as this, man. Charles, I love you, but here's the thing, right? Don't come to me with minutia. I'm not that guy, man. I'm not that guy, right? You want to learn to be creative? I'm that guy. I'll help you with that, right? So you got to meet me in the middle. I'll help you with gear stuff, but look, man, first of all, I'm not a monkey. I don't compare this because somebody wants to see it. So stop that. You don't need to see a comparison. You need to look at a light and look at what are the features. Since you're an IT guy and since you understand the numbers, go look at the specs on the Aperture, look at the specs on the Stella, look at the specs on the Rotolite. What the hell do you need to see a comparison for? You don't. Come on, people. Charles, I'm serious. Do not ask me another question on this show until you prove to me that you have spent time taking pictures without YouTube videos, man. No more YouTube videos. And that goes for the rest of you. Make that a New Year's resolution, okay? Take pictures. That's why you bought the cameras. You didn't buy your camera so that you could watch YouTube. Really? All right, gang, seriously, have a great holiday. Adios. Take care.